The Ashlocker, probably our favourite locker of everything out there on the market. Going to give you a quick overview as to what the component parts are and why we like it so much. One of the reasons we like it so much is all the bits that you see here you can actually buy as replacement parts separately. Don't know of any other locker you can do that with. So if you just damage one part, you can buy one part, and the prices are quite reasonable too. Over here I haven't really bothered with this. This is just a pile of bits and bobs, thrust washers, bolts, pins, screws, springs and various other bits. There's about 15 quid's worth there. These are pretty much always replaced if we ever rebuild an Ashlocker, because we never reuse thrust washers or springs, or never ever reuse bolts. So probably one of the most expensive parts is the main body. That's £70. You've got the air ring here, that body's about £25. The end flange there, that's about £30. You've got the cross shafts, short ones are 12, long ones 15. You've got a bronze bush, that's quite expensive at £12.75. You've got a locking ring at £9, another bronze bush at about £15. And then you've got the piston. And I'll come back to that in a second and explain a bit, but the piston, that's bronze, that's about £23. And then there's the planet gears, they're £12 each. And then you've got the locking gear and the non-locking gear, they're £25 each. You've got a cage, which is 19. The locking ring, which is made of something quite exotic and very hard, that's £40. And the cross bush in the middle, that's about £15. And then you've got the big end flange plate, that's £48.50. And of course we've got our tab lock upgrade, and this one's going to be built with it because it's a very special diff. On the question of why we like Ashcrofts, the other reason is when the piston is assembled, and I'll show you that in a minute. These, yeah, it's a small wound. These O-rings, one goes on the inside, one goes on the outside. This sits in this cylinder with that retainer ring bolted in place. Now you could do 100,000 miles, and if you then press the lock button for the first time, this would be the first time that these seals ever move. If you have an ARB, you have seals like this, and if your tyre is moving, they are rubbing on the equivalent part here. So if the first time you press your button, those will have done 100,000 miles of rubbing against the flange, and that is one of the key differences. It's a static piston, and we'll show you that when it's built. So what I'm going to do now is assemble it, and we'll come back to it in a minute and explain why it's special. A little bit of time later, we've now got an Ashlocker almost together, but I'm going to try and explain to you now the fundamental difference between most of the other air locking diffs, and mainly that's going to be ARB and the Ashlocker. Now on the ARB you would have an air ring similar to this, and inside this air ring you'll see two O-rings which are like that. Now those O-rings, when they sit in there, would in effect go on the end flange here and press down, and that end flange would have a little hole in it here, and that would go through and it would press on the back of the seal, and that in turn would press on the back of the locking ring and fire the locking ring onto the locking gear. So this is going to be basically rotating, so when this is on there on an ARB, if you're moving, those seals are wearing. Now on an Ashlocker we have this piston which I put the O-rings on, and that goes into the cylinder, and then that goes on top of there. I'll assemble it and then show you how it works on an Ashlocker. So this is the air coupling ring put together, and you'll notice on this there is a big slot there. That slot locks onto one of the top carrier caps and holds this into position and stops it moving, and then the air system goes in here. So when you press the switch, the air goes in here and it pushes this phosphor bronze pad up to the top, which in effect, this is normally sitting up, that pushes that down. So I'm just going to put the air coupler on there. So the air system is now on here. This will be locked into position, so this bit won't move. This is the bit that's going to move, and this bit here is where your bearing goes on. So this stays in the same position all the time. That's why the piston doesn't wear out, because it's not moving. It's a static piston, and what it will do is it will fire the bronze bush piston down. That will push on the locking ring, and I'll show you the other side. Now on the other side you've got your locking ring. The locking ring at the moment is sitting down, and that's because normally in these four little holes here there would be a spring. There's the spring, so they would be pushing the locking ring downwards. The gear sits there, and when the piston is engaged it lifts the locking ring and locks the locking gear. And as you can see, that's a really nice tight fit. If you press the air button when you're spinning your wheels, that's going to come up and smash into the gear teeth, and that's called crash engaging, and it will damage the locking ring and it will damage the gear. It's a really bad thing to do. So if you damage your gear and your lock ring, that is not a design fault of an Ashlocker. That's the problem with the nut behind the wheel, because all lockers should really be engaged at walking speed and not much more. So that's how that all works, completely different. And then we put the end flange on with the springs, which push the lock ring down, and we'll just do that. So there we are, one Ashlocker, all tab locked, ready to fit. And I said this was special, and it is special because I think the Ashlocker came out, I worked at CAM at the time, and I think it came out in 2009. And this one Dave has sent me is number 10,000. 10,000 Ashlockers since 2009. We've hardly seen any failures due to mechanical defects. They're all due to owner abuse, lack of maintenance, oil, water, and too heavier right foot. So there you go, serial number 10,000 Ashlocker, tab locked. And we're going to build this. There's a part 2 video, and the part 2 video is equally a very special build for us here at XS4x4. So you can watch that now. Hope this has been of use. As you can see, we like the Ashlocker. We are Ashlocker dealers. We have been for a long time. They look after us, but basically if we haven't got the part in stock, we can probably get it in 24 hours. I think you'll struggle to do that with any other bit of off-road kit. It's a great bit of locker. If you're thinking of one, that's the one to buy. Bye for now.